Hello guys and welcome to a very rare but yet another YouTube video on my channel. This is going to be a video because the EU Masters, the European Premier Tournament from Riot, is starting tomorrow, and I'm joined here by Mannitas and by Lobster, who will be the second caster pair for this tournament. And of course, you guys know Mannitas as the last champion of EU Masters, so the reigning champion is actually coming in as a caster, and Lobster, a very well-known tournament player, content creator, and streamer, of course, as well. How are you guys doing?
Great, great. Pretty excited to discuss, see what the teams look like, and yeah, maybe give some early predictions.
I'm pretty excited too, especially because I've seen some of the names and I think I know a great majority of the players. And I'm also very excited to see how Portugal's team is going to shape up, especially since we are the reigning champions. I want to see how the team is going to go on to defending the title.
And the purpose of this video, of course, will be not to go too much into meta or into anything like that, just going over the different groups that we see. We had the final groups tweeted out by Riot a few days ago, and also the players for each group, which I think hasn't even been publicly announced yet, so this might be a premiere in that sense. But we're going to go over the players we know, say kind of what we know about each player, what maybe the strengths of each teams are, and also at the end of each group, some predictions. So without further ado, I'm going to pop in Group A for everyone to see. We have some info here for each player, not just a name, but also sometimes the city, sometimes just the country again, sometimes the background that these players have competed in other games in the past, if they're part of any kind of community team or maybe official team for some players, the deck they use for qualification, which I think is a pretty interesting thing to look at going into this tournament, what decks they might be comfortable with, and also their peak rank in any season really. But this is a bit more of it wasn't a perfect answer for all these players, so don't trust it too much. But going right into Group A, we have Germany as a first seed for the whole tournament. Teddy did a very good job in qualifying them as the number one player as well on ladder. We have Italy coming in as the 8th seed. We have Turkey coming in as the 9th seed. And we have Lebanon with Sari at the helm coming in as the 16th seed. The seeds were done by the average LP of all three players after the qualification finished. So it wasn't just the team captain like it was last time. It changed a bit, but this is Group A. As you can see, the players there for Germany: Teddy, Navatix, Ghoster Driver. For Italy, Bulat, Magliadoro, and Exonarf. For Turkey, Grand Rodeo, Yukon Protein, and Fight for Revenge. And Lebanon, Sari, Reaper, and Champion Unknown. So starting with Germany, Lobster, you're German. I think you know these players very well. Any standout player to really highlight here, or what are just your general thoughts on the team coming into this tournament?
Yeah, this is an interesting one because I don't think there's a single standout player in Germany, but what makes this country so stacked, Legends of Runeterra wise, is that there's such a high quantity of top tier players, of experienced players, both on the ladder and in tournaments. We see this time there's 3 completely new faces, and yet all 3 of them hit peak rank 1, even though it's 3 different people than the ones that qualified last time. Navatix, of course, has been known in the tournament scene for ages. He's been playing since beta. Ghoster Driver, also rather more known as an aggro player, so I'm a bit surprised his number 1 deck for qualification was Zoe Vi, also showing off how well-rounded he is. And Teddy is a person I think joined the competitive scene rather recently. I have not played against him myself yet. I don't know much about him, but his ladder performance speaks for himself. And I think the team's just super well-rounded. Everyone can play some type of deck, whether it's aggro, combo, mid-range, control. And I think Germany is definitely one of the early favorites going into this tournament.
So Manitas, looking at the German team, obviously the first seed in the tournament, would you consider them just the straight up favorite, considering they're the first seed in terms of LP for the qualification? Or do you think there are other countries or other teams that maybe are also in that kind of tier 1 for this whole tournament?
I think even though Germany's team is pretty stacked, I do know Navatix and Ghoster Driver playstyle because I've seen them play, or I've even played against them. I think there are other good teams on the tournament, and especially, for example, in Group A, I would say Italy would be as favored as Germany on the tournament, especially because, for example, Italy has Bulat and Meliadoro, which made part of the past team. I think even Portuguese team is also as favored. Poland's team is pretty stacked, for example. I think even though they're the number one seed because of the qualification. I think almost all teams are pretty equal on in their Okay, sorry.
Kind of like the peak level they can play at, I think, was what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
I agree. I
They're,
think
they're,
they're
yeah.
so evenly matched in terms of like all these players have played big tournaments. Some of them might be 16 seed like Sorry, but he's a player that obviously is maybe one of the best players in the tournament. So it's not, I think you can't take the stats like at face value. I think it's like you said, it's so close that it doesn't really matter too much, I think, what the seeds are. And I kind of agree with that as well.
Yeah, that's pretty much that. It's basically almost all players and all teams are pretty equal in peak level. I think this is going to be interesting because of that.
Mm-hmm. Looking at the rest of this team, the rest of this group, Turkey and Lebanon. Turkey is a country that in the very first EU Masters they didn't qualify by one LP. Pokervac ended up getting Czechia the 16th seed by making it as the 16th best player with different countries. So they almost made it back then. The kind of one of our bosses, the head of esports for Riot, is actually from Turkey, so he was very sad that they didn't qualify. This time they made it. I think they've always been high on ladder, especially Grand Rodeo and UCAN Protein. I think we all know these names as players that have always been pretty high on ladder, and they have maybe not the biggest density of players, but still decent 4, 5, or 6 that are always fighting. So I was surprised not to see them in the first EU Masters, but it's good to see them in this tournament. And these are players that none of them have really had a huge impact in any kind of tournaments, I think, community or Riot-wise. I think they're more ladder players, so it'll be interesting to see what they can bring to the table in that regard. And Lebanon, of course, it was a peculiar case with Sorry, not even knowing if there was a third player to make it. Obviously, it's a country that doesn't have many players on ladder. I think it's 10 total in all ranks, so kind of screwed there. But we see the third player, champion unknown. Peak rank Diamond 1 hasn't made it to Masters yet, but it is in an official Riot tournament, so pretty surprising. What are your opinions on Lebanon as a country, considering that Sorry is a very good player, but the other two maybe are not so well known, not so experienced?
First of all, I gotta give a shout out to Champion Unknown for citing Sejuani Timo as the #1 deck used for qualification. I very much do respect that, a bit of variety in what otherwise is always the same deck list. But yeah, as you guys mentioned earlier, it's going to be a very interesting mix. Every team is kind of set up a bit differently. On some countries, we have like some well-known star players, like Sorry, like Alan Secure in Poland, like Akare for Latvia, who also kind of solo carried them last time. And it's going to be interesting to see if they, as captains, can shine, and basically the one main star player is going to be shining through and making the country very competitive, and the two others are just going to be a good complementary input and everything synergizes as a team. Mm-hmm. Or if the other teams that are more spread out, where it's like 3 very experienced players, are going to have a competitive advantage. I think it's too early to say. I would not count anyone out just due to the lower ladder seed. Mm-hmm. I think a big factor might be how synergistic these teams are, how well they cooperate with each other.
And at the end of the day, I mean, it's a 3v3 tournament, but for example, Sorry, he can be team captain, and then he can, it's one player playing. It's not like there's 3 players playing separately where they can help each other. It's not the case. So I think maybe it's not really like adding, 3 very good players. It's going to be better than 1 good player and 2 more unknown players, because if the good player is good enough, he might just, do enough to just win it by himself, let's say. So it does help, of course, I think, having different opinions and different high-level opinions if there's 3 very good players, but it won't be like an additive, advantage for just having those players, I think. So yeah, players like Sorry, I think, can really just take Lebanon to top 8 or top 4, or who knows. I think he's a very accomplished and experienced tournament player. I also want to mention some of these teams are missing players that we thought, or we associate with, like Italy, for example, not having Broken Ball in the team. I think is a surprise for many people. Germany not having Game Breaker, not having Lobster, I think is a surprise for many people. So it shows that some of these countries have just a huge density of competitors, and the ladder qualification, Lobster, because you were playing, was quite intense, I think, for many countries like Spain, like Germany. So I think it'll happen quite often in a few more groups while we look at them, that we're going to be missing some key names. But this is maybe the chance for other players that haven't had the good fortune or the skill to make it into other tournaments, can now come in and start making a name for themselves and become staples for those countries as well. Mannitas, I want to ask you, this is the time has come to ask you your predictions for this group. After the group stage, which is 6 days, going into quarterfinals, what 2 teams are making it out of this group and moving on to top 8? and in what order?
That's a very hard question because I think all the teams are pretty equal in peak level, as we talked about. I pretty much trust Italy on qualifying because of Bulat and Meliadoro have a really good synergy, and they know each other pretty well. So I think they already have the experience. And even though Exonarf is new in the team, I think he will adapt pretty well. So I'm pretty confident Italy is going through. Then the thing is between Germany and Turkey. I think possibly it's going to be Germany. I'll say Italy first and Germany second, because Germany team is kind of new. The players probably are knowing each other, so they don't have the experience and the synergy yet to maybe go through. We have to remember that it is being a 3v3. There needs to be a good synergy between all players. Even though we were talking about one player being able to carry an entire team, that's why I'm probably putting Lebanon on fourth. Even though I know Sorry and I think he's one of the best players in this tournament, having a second player that can help or that has some pretty good experience is really important in this one. Obviously, I don't know neither Reaper, neither Champion Unknown, and this could be a very bad prediction, and I could be completely wrong. But from my perspective, I think that's probably what is going to happen. In the case of Turkey, I think all the players are really good, but I also don't know exactly how they synergize together. That's why I'm putting Germany above Turkey in this case. It's just because I know exactly the players on Germany. I know they play really well. And I know they will try everything they can to qualify for the top 8.
So final answer is Italy first, Germany second. Is that correct?
Yes.
Got it. We'll put that into the record books. Lobster, what is your opinion?
Yeah, I'll be a bit biased here. I firmly do believe, though, that Germany is favored to take the first seed. Although they're about par on Italy skill level wise, most likely. I just think Nawatix and Ghoster Driver both have insane amounts of tournament experience. And the only question is going to be how well they synergize. But if you have three very competent individual players who all can see like the right plays, who can see the deep lines and can all discuss about it, I think they might be able to take this away. That being said, I'm also kind of rooting for the ones that might be the underdogs here. For example, Lebanon. I'd not at all be surprised if there is going to be one or two upsets in this group.
Your final answer, Germany first, Italy second? Is that?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to go with my final answer. Will be Germany first and Lebanon second. I believe in Sari's power as an individual player to just concentrate all his IQ and pull ahead and champion unknown. He was unknown before, but maybe he has some secret, listen, because you're playing at a different level, maybe you have some things that others wouldn't consider as a serious option, and then you just give a different perspective. So I think he'll be an interesting wild card to have on that team to see what he can bring to the table. So I'm going to go Germany first and Lebanon second, with Turkey and Italy not making it through. But I think that's enough for Group A. We're going to move on to Group B now, so I will hide this, and now Group B is up. I'm going to go over all the teams and players for the viewers. Group B has Spain as the second seed with Sergio Vamos, CDS Faul, and Cosimo as the players. We have for Russia, 7th seed, Ragnar Rosic, Kono Jornoda, and Petish, the seasonal champion in seasonal number 2 in Europe. For Ukraine, we have First Pink Beaver, Quickwell, and Evil Dead. They're the 10th seed coming into it. And for Latvia, we have Akare coming back almost from the dead, because we saw him in the first EU Masters, and now he's back for EU Masters 2. It's like a wake up. He has like an alarm on his phone, like, oh, time to qualify Latvia again. We have Drobene, who I played a lot in Diamond before he qualified. He barely made it in as a second Latvian player in Masters. And then we have Epic Nice as the third player, who, as we can see in the table, we know nothing about. He is a complete mystery. So to start things off, I guess I can lead off with Spain, because I am Spanish and I know these players very well. Sergio Vamos, I know him from Gwent. I think he's a player that he was a finalist in the second seasonal as well against Pettis. I believe he lost. So kind of a rivalry happening in this group as well already between those two players. He's someone that comes from Gwent. I think he's really a very, very experienced player that hasn't maybe had the direct results just yet in tournaments, but definitely has the knowledge, I think, to do very, very well. Faul, another very known Spanish player at this point, was also in the first EU Masters and did a really good job there. They got top 4 with Raxitos and with Najwik. And then Cosimo, someone that's I think more new a little bit more from the past few months, but he won the recent Mastering Runeterra 1K tournament in 2 weeks ago. He's won, I think, a fight night tournament. He did very well in one of the fight nights, and he's just been doing very well on ladder as well, with Spain now, and just even in this mastermind competition that the Spanish people did on ladder at the start of the last season. So I think, for me, one of the favorites with Germany definitely for the whole thing. But what do you guys think about this Spanish team?
Yeah, personally, I absolutely agree. Spain is looking to be an early favorite as well. The team is absolutely stacked. We see triple peak rank 1 as well. And all three of those have insane amounts of tournament experience. And since Faul is on the team who also made it last time, they also have experience in this specific format, in this unique tournament format, which other players and other teams might first have to accustom to. That being said, we know Petish, I think, won the last season or the second to last season on the European side. And you also already gave Latvia and Akare shoutouts. And we also say first Pink Beaver for Ukraine, who's been known since beta as well, who has competed in a lot of tournaments and also always high competitor on the ladder. So to me, in this group, what stands out is I think Spain just has the most well-rounded team, and the other ones kind of have at least one player with a lot of tournament experience, but the other two are rather unknown, at least in the tournament scene. I know they're all good ladder players, but Spain, to me personally, looks to be favored in this group.
Mannitas, what are your standout opinions looking at this group? What is the first thing that comes to mind that maybe hasn't been mentioned? Is there anything that you think we should definitely look out for?
I think I have to agree with Lobster. Like almost all players we know from ladder, but only Spain has the most players that are known in tournament. I would obviously go with Spain being the favorite in this group because honestly the team is so stacked. Sergei Tuvamos, Faul, and Cosimo is a very stacked team. Faul has the experience from the first few Masters, which is very important. Sergei Tuvamos is a very experienced player, and I would say probably one of the best tournament players right now in the scene. I'm not sure. Cosimo has just shown up in recently and is just winning back to back almost all tournaments where he plays. So I think this is the best team in the group. I think I would go with giving them the favorship, but obviously not everything is just straightforward. Like Russia having Petish that won the second seasonal and Kono Giorno, which is always high on the ladder. And from what I've been told, he has is the second most winning tournaments on Russia. I think I think he has the most tournaments in their country. So I think the team from Russia is pretty stacked too. Ukraine, you have first Pink Beaver, which is obviously one of the most known players here. And even though we don't know Quickwell or Evil Dad from tournaments, I've always seen them at least doing top 100 or top 200 in ladder, so they're pretty accustomed to playing this game. Another good team. And then there's Latvia. Even though, as I said, solo players, it gets hard to carry a team as a solo player because you need to have the synergy. Akri is back with the experience from the first few Masters, and he seems like a very chill dude that knows what he's doing. So he can probably, if in the case of Drobain or Epic, Nice, if they don't have that much experience in competitive, I think he can just lead them into maybe. As you said for sorry with Lebanon, just the underdogs taking a spot and surprising some people. I think after the first few Masters, Akari is definitely wanting that spot, and it was on our group, the Portugal group, and we played against them, and definitely people need to be careful with Latvia because Akari can surprise.
Yeah, I think you guys covered everything on this group really. I'm gonna go over some bigger topics that maybe some people might be missing. Spain is in this group, but then the rest of the teams, Russia, Ukraine, and Latvia, are all for the same region. And Drobini, I did an interview with him, with the second player from Latvia. He mentioned it, that it's kind of like all these friends having to fight in the same group, and only two of them being able to make it out, or one in this case, I hope, if Spain makes it. So there's a lot of rivalries and maybe friendships as well, kind of similar to France and Belgium in Group C as well. So a lot of different storylines, I think, within this group. With Latvia, especially with Akare, like we mentioned, he pretty much single-handedly. I saw him qualify Latvia for the EU Masters, so the first one. I thought, looking at the countries for this one, I thought there's no way Latvia is in it again. It was kind of like a fluke maybe. And halfway through, like a weekend, I look at the ladder, and all of a sudden I see Akare, whose name I had not seen on ladder for like 4 months since the last EU Master. He just came in, and in the most competitive time for the EU ladder, managed to get like a top 8 or top 9 spot, I think. So I'm not sure who he is or what he can do, but the 2 times that he had to perform, he's done it, and he's qualified his country by himself. So that's already, I think, a very good sign of what he's capable of. And Ukraine as well, like we mentioned, very good ladder players with Russia as well. But because they're in the CIS region, it's hard to know too much more about them, because I know like from some of the Twitter posts that there are many tournaments in Russia, like these daily cup kind of stuff, that all these players are playing very, very often. But from the West, from Europe, or from the America section, we don't know much about this, so we can't really have a clear perspective of, oh, maybe like you said, Mannitas, this Kono Jorno Da guy is a guy that's won 80 tournaments and he plays tournaments every day. It could be. So I think it's a group that has a lot of surprises. I hope Spain makes it first seed, because I think they're favorites in this group and the whole tournament even as well. But the rest of it is really it's all up in the air, I think, for me. Any one of these 3 teams can make it as the second seed. But I'm going to go with Russia. I think Petish winning a seasonal, and Ragnaros was in the last seasonal as well, so they have, I think, a lot of experience. I think they're going to make it as the second group, making it to top 8 or second team from this group. Lobster, Mannitas, just quickly, I want you guys to give me your impressions on who will be number 1 and number 2 in this group. Mannitas, you want to start?
I can start. I will go with the Simon saying that Spain will take the number 1 spot on the group. Even though there can be some surprises. The second spot is kind of hard to decide, because I think all the other 3 teams can get the second spot if they work pretty well. As I said in the previous EU Masters, Latvia was pretty close of the second spot, so I wouldn't be surprised if they take it. But looking at all the players, I would go with Russia taking the second spot. I think having Kono Jorno and Petish on the team makes the team very, very solid. And yeah, I think it's Russia the second spot. So I would go Spain, Russia, then Ukraine and Latvia being pretty close. So I don't know which one would be third and fourth.
Lobster?
I also agree with you guys. I go for Spain for number 1 as a fairly obvious favorite. I go with Russia for number 2, mainly because, Patish did not only play those big seasonal tournaments, but also I faced him a lot of times in community tournaments. I know he has practice and experience. And especially now that you guys mention, I don't know Kono Jorno, but if you guys say they might also be tournament experienced, I give the edge to Russia. I will say, though, Latvia might be a wild card. Akare has also been tearing up the ladder these last few days. I've ran into him a few times, and I think he's currently like rank 3, 4, 5 EU, somewhere around that. That being said, I don't know if Ukraine is just hiding in secret, maybe not playing ladder, maybe doing some off-stream friendly preparation. Definitely, the Ukraine and Latvia are wild cards to have a fair shot, but I go with Spain first, Russia second.
So I turned in my homework, and you guys just copy my answers. Got it. I see how it is.
Kind of.
I talked to Drobain in the interview, actually, and he said that he wasn't scared of Spain at all. He thought the biggest rivals were Ukraine and Russia. So a lot of question marks in this group, I think. We'll see how that translates to the actual matches, but definitely an interesting one to keep track of. I think no one sees it as like a group of death or anything, but I think a group that has a lot of open possibilities to who can make it. It's not so clear, I think, for most people in terms of picking their favorites. But I think that's everything for Group B. I'm going to quickly mention as well, Kono Jorno Da, his team is Shroom Dealers, so watch out. That might give him an extra edge as well, having a new perspective on reality possibly. But we'll move on to Group C. So I'll quickly do a little shuffle there. And looking at Group C, and I'll go over the different teams and the players very quickly. Coming in for France as the third seed, Flaxo, Elix, and Hayes. Flaxo and Elix, of course, huge just experienced players in the scene. And from the last EU Masters as well, where France also had a very high seed and had a very good performance, making it to the finals against Mannitas and Portugal. We have Poland coming in as a sixth seed with Alan ZQ, Shogopass, and Shihu. Same team as last time, except for Shihu taking the place as Duo Fanel. So again, a lot of experience on this team. And of course, I mean, Alan, one of the best players in Europe, I think, as a streamer, as a content creator, but also as a player. Maybe not so much in tournaments. I think he's had a lot of maybe bad luck, but I think no one can say, he's not a good player. I think he's definitely one of the best in Europe. For Belgium, Same story. We have Ultraman coming back. We have Irvin Artifact coming back, both from the first EU Masters, and Shuki, one of the best discard aggro players in Europe or the world. So already I'm just going over the teams and it's looking just so stacked. Every team I mentioned is already just so much experience. And then Sweden wasn't in the last EU Masters, doesn't have that same level of experience, but Salty Simon has been on a tear, I think, the past few months. I think he's definitely had very good individual performances in fight nights and in different community tournaments and on ladder as well. I think he really put a mark getting Sweden. The 14 seed obviously isn't very reflective because it's more the average LP of all three players, but if it was off team captain LPs, they would be much higher. I think he was definitely in the top 10, I think, for most of the qualification period. So very, very stacked roster for all these teams. Sweden is Salty Simon, I'm So Humble, and Pyrox. Initial impressions, Lobster, looking at this group. What are the first thought that comes to mind?
This group is stacked for sure. I just go straight with early predictions because I think there would be so much to say here also about the France and Belgium rivalry. But I think Poland is the favorite in this one. I've known Alan and Shihu since basically day one in this game, more or less. They've always been competitive on both ladders and tournaments. Shogo Pass, also a super competent player. Also often playing decks that are not quite that meta. Like he's known for his Ezreal Draven expertise, no matter what the meta is, pretty much. And even though he's not a content creator, the more I play against him, the more I see his play patterns. I think he's also super competent. That team is looking stacked. They know each other kind of well. They have previous experience. I go with Poland as the early favorite. That being said, France and Belgium look very well rounded, and both have one or two players each who have been in the previous EU Masters as well. Now, the interesting story about France is all three of them are from the same team, right? PCS, and even one of Belgium's players is from PCS. A bit of bittersweet rivalry there for sure. Now, the question about France is that a benefit or might that be a bit of a handicap? Because, of course, they know each other well. They are kind of synergistic, but maybe since they all always prepare together, they're kind of in the same bubble and they don't get that many creative ideas from the outside, that many hot takes of decks, which you would rather see if you get three completely different players on a group.
Yeah, I agree with that because, like you said, I mean, having different viewpoints and different, maybe a take on the meta that you as a person might think is not correct, but still having that option to look at it through this different lens and maybe have a different perspective, I think would be a benefit. And if they were already laddering together for the qualification period and trying to say, oh, this is the best deck to ladder with, or this is the best deck, they might have a very singular viewpoint, and that might be, yeah, it seems like an advantage in theory that they know each other and all this, but maybe, like you said, it is a disadvantage with other players. If you don't, if you're in a team with two players you don't know anything about, you start talking to them and discussing the game and just, the more competitive aspect, and you might have different opinions, and that might form a more finalized or a more complex final kind of perspective on the whole meta. So yeah, that might definitely be a point of contention for both these teams, France and Belgium in some ways. Mannitas, what are your just initial impressions looking at this group?
I think this is the group of death, honestly. I think this is the most stacked group in the entire tournament. And it's going to be very hard for all the teams to just go through, at least just looking at all the players. Almost all the players here just played in the previous EU Masters too. Almost all of them have been top 10 consistently on ladder. Almost all of them have also top cuts on tournaments. So there is not a single... I mean, there is one name I don't know exactly, which is Pyrox, but I think I've played against him sometimes in the Master ladder. So this is just a really stacked group. And my initial opinion is that Sweden is gonna surprise everyone and is gonna be qualifying because I really trust Salty Simon. Salty Simon is a very determined player, I would say, and he really wanted to qualify for the first EU Masters, I remember, and he wasn't able to do it, unfortunately. And now that he did it the second time, and also having I'm So Humble on the team, who has a lot of top cuts in tournaments and is also known in the community, I would say. I think they will qualify in second, surprising everyone because everyone's attention is going to be on France, Belgium, and Poland. And like all these three teams will be just trying to counter each other, and they will use the Sweden as the wild card, and Sweden will be surprising them. because they will. I think they will try to adapt their playstyles to Poland and Belgium and France, and then Sweden is just going to be okay. I'll take advantage of that, and while they're preparing for the others, we just take some wins, and I think it's going to be something around that. I think Poland has probably the most experience in terms of competitive mentality because it has Sihu and Alan ZQ, which are very known players and really good players too. Shogopass has a lot of experience. I remember him since the open beta, honestly. I've seen him playing tournaments since that time. I've always seen him on the top ladder also since that time, so I think it's a pretty stacked team, and I think they have a really good synergy, even though there's always the memes behind because of Alan's EQ and the muting thing. Alan's is a pretty chill dude to work with from what I've seen, so I think they will synergize pretty well. I think they were pretty unfortunate on the first EU Masters for not going through the top 8, but they got to play against France, which is also a pretty good team. So I think there's going to be a big rivalry between those two because Poland was eliminated by France last one, and France did get the second place, which when they were trying to get the first. So they'll just be trying to counter each other, and it's going to be the wild card for Sweden to try to take advantage out of that. Belgium is a team that has a lot of players that are really good. Like Ultraman has been taking top ladder players too, and Arvin Artifact, very known. Shuki also on the top ladder. I'm just not sure if they can just surpass, for example, France and Poland. But as I said, this is a group that is pretty equal on top level play, so it's kind of hard to know exactly who's going through, but I'll take my wild card on Sweden for sure.
So you're going Poland first, Sweden second, Lobster very quickly. What are your quick predictions?
I'll go Poland first. I'd actually go Belgium second, but I just want to say one more thing about Sweden, which I think might be a bit of a threat, and that is the lack of experience on big tournaments, I think, for these players. And also Salty Simon, I think he's a super competent player, especially when he's focused. But I think, as the name suggests, he also tends to tilt a lot. And I just hope that it doesn't happen, especially under the added pressure of representing a country and playing in a big tournament. So I definitely give Sweden a wildcard shot if everyone stays focused, if they can keep their temper and keep their cool.
I'm going to agree with that. I think, like you said, this is something that, as a caster for Fight Nights, I've noticed that when Simon has played, there's times where when he lost because he just had bad draws. I did notice some elements of his name reflecting in his play as well and in his mindset. So it seems kind of like cliche to like, oh, his name's Salty Simon, he's salty, but I think there might be some degree of that, especially because you're thrown into a big stage, into the group of death, and there's no easy matchups. Every matchup is going to be very, very hard. So that might end up affecting the Swedish team. So I'm going to go Poland first, Belgium second as well. I think Belgium, I just think they can, especially between Shuki and Ultraman, I respect both players a lot. And I think, well, you guys will see the interviews, but Simon in one of his interviews said that France was overrated and had some words. He's 3-0 against Elix in tournaments this year. So it's going to be a competitive group with lots of interesting stories, I think, to go through. But that's going to be it for Group C. We're going to go on to Group D now, the final group of this tournament and of this video as well. I'm going to quickly go over the different teams, the countries, and the players. United Kingdom coming in with Jimmy, Physical, and Caster Gems coming in as a player this time around. Very impressive showing from him to qualify. We have Czechia with wildcard Yeksu. I don't know how to pronounce that, but he was Slovakian on the flag. Then he was saying he was European. In the end, he qualified with Czechia, bumped out Thomas Overwatch out of the team, which is, kind of the team from the last EU Masters. So I don't know, some drama there. Definitely we'll see how that pans out for the team. But Pokrovac, one of the best ladder players and just very well-known player in tournaments, coming in as well. And Badge Attack, of course, the same story. I think it's Pokrovac, very well-known, and both from the first EU Masters. For Finland, we have Kepada, who made a very valiant and heroic effort to qualify Finland in the very last few hours of the qualification period. So big props to him as well. And then Sepios and Saudos, two players we don't know too much about. I think maybe similar to Lebanon and Latvia, where it was Kepada doing most of the work. We had Ali Caesar as well, who now didn't qualify in the end as a top 4, or top 3 for the country. So very interesting stories for this country as well. And then Portugal, who I know Mannitas knows a lot about, obviously. with Pepsi making a big, valiant effort to qualify them as the very last country in the very last minute, fighting against Greece for that last spot. Portugal, the reigning champions, thankfully, I think for the storylines of the tournament and for the caster, Mannitas being Portuguese, they ended up making to the tournament. So I think that's great for everyone, or definitely for Mannitas, especially. And then Pipa Machado and Bulasha, players that I don't know too much about. Bulasha, obviously, I do recognize him more from ladder as a name, but Pipa Machado, definitely not. So maybe Mannitas can shed some more light onto this. But initial opinions, Mannitas, on Portugal as a country and also just this group in general.
I think this group is pretty even too. It's going to be a very hard group. I think United Kingdom as a really stacked team. Both Jamie Liu and Physical are really great players. And Gems as the... he used to be caster, but now he's trying more the play pattern, just trying to play more tournaments and all that. And he's a really good player. People tend to just sleep on casters because they're casters, but as you can see, Gems is a really good player qualifying for United Kingdom, which is a stack team, and I think they have a lot of synergy together. Like the United Kingdom community, I think they know each other pretty well, and I think it's gonna be a team that can definitely qualify in this group. Then Xeshia is basically almost the same as the previous EU Masters. Pokrovac with all the experience. Bajatak is as a super good player with a lot of top cuts. I don't know much about him, but he's done a pretty good job on qualifying Xeshia and being top 4 on ladder, I think. So I don't know, even though there's no Thomas over OW like the last time for the team, I think this team is pretty good. It has almost all the players from the previous time, so I think they have a good synergy and have all the qualities to go through. Finland, I don't know Sepius and Zauros. I don't want to say anything because I really don't know anything about them. But I do know Kepada, and Kepada is very focused and really, really good player. So also a very difficult team for sure to face with. And obviously last, we have Portugal, which I have a lot of things to say, but I can't say everything because time won't allow. But definitely, everyone should be careful with Portugal. Even though me and Cyber, we didn't qualify, I didn't even try because I wanted this to happen exactly. So more players getting the spot on the team and getting the spotlight. Pesps is just back-to-back winning tournaments, doing top cuts, being on top ladder, just going everywhere. If there's a tournament, Pesps is going to be playing, and probably is going to be winning or doing a top cut. So he has really, really a lot of experience, and is especially with the DO Masters format, he just knows how this works, and he knows how to work under pressure. Especially in our case, we were almost eliminated in the first week. We lost the first 2 games, and we just mind resetted. And we focus a lot. Pesps has a lot of good plays and good ideas and good builds, and we just went through because of all the mentality we got together. Pesps has that experience, and he knows how to deal with this type of stuff. Then Blasha, yeah, as you said, you can know him from ladder, but probably don't know much his competitive side or his deck building. I can say that from this team, Blush is probably the best deck builder. All the decks he does, even though they look shady or more memey, have really good synergy and work really well. Like, he's the creator of Severe Connect, and with Demacia that we've been seeing, is just creating some more new brews. He was the Shivana believer in the beginning. He's a really, really good player. He was also close of qualifying Portugal by himself, but he lost all his LP in the last 2 days. Quite unfortunate, we know how that happens. But definitely, I think Pest and Blush will have a good synergy. Pipa Machado is the one I don't know much about, therefore I can't say much. He's been kind of recent to the community, but he showed pretty strong and is pretty determined to win too. One thing that the team has pretty good is that everyone just wants to win and wants to make sure that we get the title again. So all the 3 players have been, if not training together, have been training by themselves since the day after the qualifications ended. And I can tell that United Kingdom, Russia, and Finland need to be very careful because Portugal is not here to just to travel or whatever. They're here to win again. So It's definitely a powerhouse in this tournament, I'd say.
So what are your predictions, Mannitas? Just straight away, first and second, after this overview you've done.
If it was on my bias, I would say Portugal first and United Kingdom second. But I think this is gonna be pretty close, in even between United Kingdom, Zeshi, and Portugal. I would say United Kingdom first and Portugal second, and Zeshi will be third, and it will be pretty close or even decided on tiebreakers. I think Finland will be pretty close on all three too, but possibly not enough. I think Serpius and Zoros don't have that much experience since I don't know them pretty well, so I think it's going to be the wild card that is going to affect the team possibly. I could be completely wrong, as I said, from the Lebanon, and sometimes not knowing the players doesn't mean anything.
Lobster, your
All right,
expert
I have
opinion.
to say, yeah, this group is the biggest mystery to me, and I don't really know how these teams compare in power level. What I think is going to be a key to success in this group, though, is the preparation for this tournament. And I think that's where Czechia and Portugal both have an advantage. For example, I know Portugal, we prepped with them for the last EU Masters tournament. We scrimmed a few times. I know Pepsi is part of Team Madman, who is an insane preparation group. It's basically a lot of top tournament grinders who only focus on grinding these tournaments, on finding the best place, on winning. And Pepsi has a whole team behind him, giving him input for spicy decks about pick ban strategy, this, and so on. And he can share that with Team Portugal. On the other hand, we have Czechia kind of doing the same thing in a more closed manner. I know Pokrovac is pretty diligent when it comes to tournament preparation with the Excel spreadsheets, with gathering a lot of information, and brilliant when it comes to preparation overall and finding the right lineups, predicting pick ban patterns, and sometimes also bringing spicy decks, like with basically taking advantage of this closed deck list format with the Undying deck they brought last time and splashing in ATF to make it look like a go hard deck. Last time, last EU Masters, we were on a group with Czechia. We ended up being tied for first place, so I know how competent they are. Czechia, I think, is also one of the favorites here because it's a very good combination of insanely good mechanical play from the unique players, from everyone else on an individual level, as well as the preparation and team effort. And for the UK and Finland, I know Jimmy and Kepada, most of all, are both insanely good mechanical players. And I know that the other players are also adding a bit of diversity with the decks they can play and so on. But I'm not sure if they are on that level of both synergy and preparation, most of all, and that going to be that creative with lineups and predicting the pick ban patterns and so on. So I go with Czechia first and Portugal second. But I will say this group could definitely go like any way possibly imaginable.
I agree with both sentiments, and I'm gonna I'm gonna copy your homework this time, Lobster. I think Czechia first. I mean, just the Pokrovac Badge Attack, duo, as you mentioned, with all the prep and all this already. I think really good. But then this wild card of EX2 coming in as the top 4 player in the most competitive time for EU ladder and just showing out of nowhere, because I had never seen his name before personally, and just coming in as a mystery, Slovakian, then he was not European, people didn't know, and now he's Czech, and he's making this team better. But I'm worried if there's going to be any kind of drama from how that qualification happened that might cause some inner turmoil, maybe some kind of problems within the team. If it doesn't, then I think they're going to be the first seed. I think just with Pokrovac and just the prep they do and everything, I think they definitely have what it takes. And I'm going to go with Portugal as well, second seed. I trust Pepsi. I think he has the experience. I think, like I said before, because it's not kind of an additive thing, even if I don't know the other players too much, I think just with Pepsi at the helm, they, Mannitas knows this, they won the first EU Masters for a reason. I think it wasn't a fluke by any chance. It was, every time they were surprising us more and more and more. And Pepsi was one of those players that really was in a leading role for the Portuguese team. So I'm going to trust them and trust him specifically, kind of like I trusted Sari with Lebanon in the same way, and put Portugal as a second team coming out of this group. United Kingdom and Finland, I do know some of these players. I trust they're going to be good, but I think they need that, maybe one extra step to make it into a confident role, or maybe like an experienced role where they're going to make it out of this group. Maybe if UK had players like Spikes or Turtle, the players that I do know much more from tournaments that I think have more experience, that didn't end up qualifying, maybe they would have a better chance. But maybe I also get surprised. Maybe Physical and Gems can really bring a lot to the table and also push UK through. But I think that covers everything we were talking about here. We got all the predictions, we got all the groups going. We didn't really talk too much about the tournament itself and the format, but I'll quickly go over it, I guess, at the end of the video. This will be, of course, 4 groups, so 16 teams total. 2 of these teams will make it after the 6 group stage days. They'll make it to the quarterfinals, which will be played. And each of these, we'll have this weekend, we'll have Saturday and Sunday, the first 2 group match days, let's say. Next weekend, the next 2, the weekend after that, the next 2. So it'll be every single weekend until the end of June. You'll be seeing this EU Masters tournament. Then we'll have the quarterfinals on the 3rd weekend of June, just the quarterfinals on the Sunday because it's going to be with the seasonal as well. And the very last day will be semifinals and final on the very last weekend of June. So like 20 late something. But I think that covers everything. I'll be casting with Mogwai as usual, and Mannitas and Lobster will be coming in as their debut in a big Riot tournament. And I know they're definitely they have no one in chat's gonna say, oh, these casters are so dumb. They're making the wrong play, because surprise, we have the last EU Masters champion and the best community tournament player in the game until now. So the accolades are there. You guys have anything you need to defend yourselves from Twitch chat. And I think also you guys will pick up the the hosting stuff and all the communication stuff very quickly as well. Yeah, experience with content creation. So once you get past the initial hurdle, it'll be, I think, quite natural. Agreed?
Well, thanks for having us as a guest here, Panda. It's been super fun to do this video, talk a bit about what to expect, what this group looks like, and some potential storylines that might emerge from this.
Yeah, totally. I'm pretty happy with doing this, honestly. I think that the thing is missing here in Europe on LoR is totally the content related to the players and the tournament. And I think this type of stuff is very important. By the way, I forgot one thing. I'm just remembering just the postscriptum. Blusha is also from the Madman. You referred that, Lobster. Blusha also recently was added to that team. So yeah, that makes Portugal even more scary. But yeah, I want to see how this tournament ends. I think this is going to be a very good show.
And for those viewers watching this video, I hopefully will have it uploaded today, Friday, so the tournament starts tomorrow. If you check out the Player Runeterra Twitter, you will see all kind of updates there on schedule and what matches you'll be seeing tomorrow on stream. I think that roughly the time is 2 p.m. CEST for the start time. If it's not somewhere on Twitter, well, that's it. And I'll probably post this on Reddit as well with some extra info throughout the day, but I am casting the Fight Night tournament in 5 minutes, so I'll try and do that as the day moves along. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the discussion. We'll maybe do some more discussions between the weekends, maybe after, maybe not after this weekend, but after we see some more results and get closer to the group stage ending and the playoffs starting. We might do a second or a third or a fourth recap video like this one. So stay tuned, I guess, to my Twitter or maybe my YouTube. There won't be very frequent uploads, but the ones that are uploaded are going to be, I think, some quality stuff like this video. So thank you guys, Lobster and Mannitas, for joining me. We'll see you guys tomorrow in the first day of this LoR Masters Europe Chronicles of Shurima tournament. So stay tuned on Twitch, and we'll see you then.